Okay.
Hey, this one worked.
It worked this time. Yay. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday the 13th. It's
Yeah,
Friday the 13th
I
today.
forgot.
Oh, actually, you're on Saturday the 14th now.
Yeah, but it was yesterday.
Yeah,
It
well,
was
it is today still.
4 hour and a half ago. It's not that
Yeah. It's what time over there now?
4:30 a.m.
She is insane. She's up at 4:30 to do the show. Crazy woman.
I was up at 3:30. I was up, in fact, at 3 because I I wake up at 2 and something, 2:30 and something. I can't sleep anymore when I do have a live show. I'm traumatized to have missed one.
Yeah, she's crazy. We're not actually. I don't know. We're looking ahead at the next episode. We have another episode, not next week, but the week after planned. But because France still has not done jumping ahead for daylight savings time, I may just do like readings on that Friday instead of trying to schedule a pre-recorded show.
Yeah, it's
I may just do live readings that night. So
I gonna have plenty of time.
yeah, yeah.
We're gonna I'm gonna be at home trying to homeschool my kid. So yeah, gonna have plenty of time.
Yeah. So I don't know what we'll do, but anyway,
It's
that we'll figure that out. I'll let you all know. But the next show, whether it's going to be a pre-recorded show that'll be aired, or whether I'm actually doing a live show, it will be on March 27th at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Will be our next. Either a pre-recorded show will be broadcast that night, or I'll do a live show. But just a heads up there. Already chat is going crazy, but we're not going to be discussing that tonight. Tonight we're actually looking at mental health in witchcraft, or a witch's perspective on mental illness, mental health, mental well-being. How it affects our practice, if at all. How does it affect our magical workings? How does it just affect life in general as a witch? Our thoughts, our insights, our experiences, things we want to share. And if you have any thoughts, everybody who's watching, a nice big group out there tonight. Yeah, let us, tune chime in on any thoughts in regards to mental illness within witchcraft. So I guess we can begin with, mental illness is a pretty broad topic, but I kind of wanted it to be broad because I want it to cover all types of, experiences we might have had. And this includes not just our own personal experiences with, the heading of mental illness, but people in our lives that we may, as witches, have had, or interactions or relationships with individuals with mental illness, and how that affected us personally as a witch, and or our craft, our lives, and that sort of thing. So I don't know where you want to sort of start with this.
Well, it's difficult to choose an angle to start. There is
I know, right?
to share on, to think about, because obviously we don't have any absolute answers. We don't have those kinds of, so it's pretty much thinking about and what are our experience. Unfortunately, I do have some experiences with troubled people, let's say, or just yeah, people that are not thinking straight, we might say that, people confused.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and regarding of uh, it could be pretty much difficult to handle, to endure sometimes, because depending on what does this person got as a mental problem, it can be
Mm-hmm.
very challenging to endure, and to cope with. It can basically, if this person is close enough to you, it can be destroying even. So
Yeah. And I think from okay, so from the perspective of being a witch, I think sometimes it can even be difficult to determine whether what I'm experiencing is magical or what I'm experiencing could be like mental illness. I mean, for example, you hear voices or I hear voices. Okay, am I seriously hearing voices of spirit or am I having a psychotic episode?
yeah, or are you schizophrenic?
Right, and having a psychotic episode, right? Of
And you know
being
what's
that
really a mindfuck is it can be both. You can be
right, right.
schizophrenic, but truly hearing otherworldly voices. Where's the line? And the thing is, in mental health issues, the line isn't clear at all, at all. Even dark and evil kind of people, the Ted Bundy's like people, the
Mhm.
really dark and dangerous and awful people that are running around the world, even them might be driven by something.
Right.
And the thing is, for as far as I've seen a link, I've seen a connection in each and every one mental troubled people I came across with at a different level. For an example, a person with a narcissistic uh, trouble, really an heavy one. Usually, those one are psychic vampire. They got something. They do feed on you. This is just not a narcissistic, illness, mental illness thing. It goes further than that. So where's the line? How do you separate the two thing they might show? How do you do that? It's terribly complicated, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. I remember from my first experiences and still even now, I constantly am questioning, you know, did I really just hear that? Or is am I losing
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Am I having a nervous breakdown or did I just see that? Did I, did I just smell that? And then I'll turn to my husband and go, do you smell whatever it is? Do you smell that flower? Do you smell the cigarettes? All the doors are locked. Nobody smokes in the house. Can you smell that? And he's like, I can't smell anything. I'm like, oh my God, isn't smelling things something burning, isn't that like a symptom of schizophrenia? And he's like, I don't think you're schizophrenic.
yeah,
But seriously, that when you're experiencing things like that, um, and I am sure if I were to go to a mental health person and told them honest truth, I'm sure they'd think I was delusional.
Yeah, me too. That's
I
why
know, right?
about it, because, and we've learned to not speak about that, because there was a lot of people who ended in asylum, or psychiatric unit, back in time, because they did speak, sorry, they did tell about what they were seeing or hearing, but they didn't have any disease, illness, I mean. They didn't have one. They were just medium or clairvoyant or an else. So yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's pretty rough, because you can ask yourself, am I, yeah, am I just having a nervous breakdown, or what? What's happening? It can be really challenging.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know. I would never try to um, make that decision for someone else. Uh, and I think, at least for me, if I ever encounter um, a spirit or a vision or something that is truly disturbing me, or some voice telling me to harm myself or to harm another person, I definitely second guess that, and generally have the understanding that I
Some,
should seek
Something's
help,
wrong.
or it's something I shouldn't listen to,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
or you should clear your space and do something against them. This kind of bad advices.
Right, right. I know someone in chat earlier had said something about they've heard that if you're depressed,
Yeah, I've
that you shouldn't be casting spells. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think I don't think this is actually how we should look at this case. My thoughts and my opinion about this is, when you are depressed, you're gonna run low on confidence, energy, and everything else. This gonna make any magical work tougher than it should be. Usually, if you are in a good state, a good mental and physical state, your magical work already got some challenge to overcome. But if you feel depressed, those challenges gonna be higher as a mountain. So in my opinion, it's not that you should not cast. It's gonna be really tough on you to cast anything, because you're gonna lack some energy. And if you fail to maintain concentration, if you fail to visualize, because you are um, um, confused by your state, yeah, you might waste your time. You might. But this is not about, I think this is not about, you should not, is it is more than, you're gonna have trouble too.
Yeah, I think I think first of all, I think it depends on the spell you're trying to cast.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, what is the intention of the spell? I mean, if you are in pain, the pain might aid in the manifestation of a spell if it's dealing out pain. I mean, I really think it depends on the type of spell that you're trying to cast. But what I tend to do is, on the days that I have a lot of energy, or on the days I'm feeling really good and really confident and really powerful in my own magics, and I don't necessarily have something I want to do, I will raise energy and imbue it, or charge something
Sorry
that I
for,
can use later as a battery for the
yes.
times I don't have a lot of energy. or I use that, So for example, if I'm in a really good place, I'm feeling really confident, feeling really powerful, maybe I'll charge some candles for prosperity or for love or for healing. And then later on, when I need that, I will just use the candle I've already imbued or charged for that. I think this is, at least for me, a very practical way to work in my witchcraft. And it really helps the times I'm feeling, down or not very confident or low energy. And, I just, it's sort of like putting something in the bank for later.
Yeah.
And making a withdrawal when I need it.
A cord, tying knot in a cord.
Yes.
Pretty much like you are doing when you are storing the full moon energy, kind of. Tying knots, capturing energy in the cord. I tend to do that, especially to store energy for later. And then I keep those items I might have charged in a special place in order to them to keep, untouched for the time I will need them. Or you can also charge a quartz crystal. If you like to work with crystals, you can pretty easily charge the transparent one, the quartz.
Yeah, quartz.
Quartz, the basic quartz. They are pretty good to receive. You can charge them pretty easy.
Yeah.
So
that's what I tend to use, is the quartz.
Yeah, I have a bunch of it all
Yeah.
the time. And I do, store things. And when I am feeling down, I take them and reabsorb the energy.
Right, the energy,
Sometimes
right.
Sometimes it's not enough, because sometimes there is so much running on in your life that even this boost of energy doesn't work. When you are too depressed, it's gonna, give you a boost for an amount of hours or days, but eventually gonna dry up, and you don't have any more stocked energy. So
Yeah.
how do you go when this is the case, when you are feeling so much down or depressed, and you don't have any more storage for energy? Then you should work on yourself, I think, before thinking of casting anything for someone else. You should work on yourself first. If you work with the spirit realm, if you do work with light being or deities, then call upon them to help you to regain energy in order to take the next step, healing yourself, taking care of yourself.
I agree.
You're reading in the chat.
I was like, I'm listening to you and I'm like reading. It's going crazy. I'm so far behind.
Yeah,
But I agree. I think, like you said, if as Flory Mel was asking, if a witch is depressed, what could she do to help herself in a magical sense? And my first thought is shadow work. Know thyself. I mean, the first pillar of the witch's pyramid is to know, and that means to know yourself. So if you're feeling depressed, go through that. Why am I feeling this way? And it's going to get hard. I mean, and sometimes we can't do that work ourselves. And I honestly think that's where, traditional therapy helps, because they're working with you on your shadows. They're getting to that, that nitty gritty of why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And I mean, I really feel like modern therapy is, yes, medication is important, but medication with therapy, with talk therapy, with psychotherapy, just to medicate someone and not try to get to understand why they're feeling the way they're feeling, I feel like is doing the person a disservice. But taking medication to help while you're trying to work through whatever it is, I think is important.
Yeah.
Have you had, I mean, I don't know if you want to discuss it or not, but have you had situations with depression or anything of the sort?
Yeah.
I know the answer to this, but I figured.
Obviously, you knew. Yeah. I've gone through a burnout, which is basically an heavy and sudden, because it's not so sudden really, but a sudden depression where suddenly you find yourself unable to function, basically. When this thing struck for me, I was for 24 hours, I was almost unable to talk. I had lost my ability to talk. It was like I was heavily drunk, but I wasn't, and I knew how I sounded, but my brain just disconnected some some wires because I was under too much pressure, and it was my body ways to let me know that I had absolutely had to stop right now. So my body stopped me dead in my tracks, cutting everything off. And it has consequences on my blood pressure and my heart. I had to be medicated. This is the
Mhm,
right
mhm.
for heart troubles. So it can be extremely tough. Even a simple depression can be extremely difficult. So
Mhm.
yes, I had to go through that. I worked as much as I could at the time on shadow work, trying to clear my thoughts and my vibration for the pain I was suffering. And it took me time, because when you end up in such a dark place, obviously it's gonna take time for you to climb up the hill.
Mhm.
You can overcome that in the end, but
Mhm.
to really put yourself in it, meditate, shadow work, um, drink some nice, when you put herbs into hot water, infusion. What's the right word?
Yeah, an infusion. Yeah.
Infusion, yeah. Okay, so drink calming infusion. Try some essential oil. Use crystal when you meditate, and surround yourself with positive and uh, upbeating things to help you go through. But for me, the things that helped me, alongside with a little bit of medication, because I had for 1 year, more, a little bit more than 1 year, was a crystal. So because I was attracted to one crystal especially, so yeah, at this point, what I had to lose, yeah. So I bought this one, I hanged it around my neck, and it took 24 hours for me to feel better.
Nice.
And I was out of the burnout in 24 hours. This crystal was calling basically to me.
Mhm.
Responded to the call. And it was the best thing I've ever done, because I've stopped every medication after that, because I didn't need them anymore. My heart was okay, blood pressure was okay, my brain was okay, everything was okay. So, okay. So now I know that I can relate on this specific crystal to help me. But in the first steps, I had to be under medication. My advice then would be, do not refuse medication. It's an other help for you.
Mhm.
This doesn't mean that you cannot do everything else that your witches are gonna do anyway. But you can take this extra push, to this is not a bad thing. I mean, peas are out of the ancient um, knowledge about plants and chemistry, basically. So take too much medication is not a solution. I don't think you need to work on yourself with psychotherapy, therapy, and everything,
Mhm.
and shadow work and all. But medication can help, and this is
I
not
agree.
a bad thing. It's an help, one more step in the direction you want to go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel the same way about any type of Western medicine. When you're in trauma, when you're in a situation that is, acute pain or whatever kind of pain that may be, mental, physical, emotional, when you're dealing with pain, it's difficult to think beyond the pain. And medication, whether it's going to help soothe the pain of your mind or soothe the pain of your back or your leg or whatever is in pain, so that then you can address the bigger issue. I think that's the place it should have. That's what it should be used for. I'm making this judgment for me, not for anybody else. This is just my opinion and how I deal with these things for myself. If I become reliant upon a medication for whatever it is, and I'm refusing to deal with the greater issue, then for me, that's an issue, because then I'm refusing to do the greater work.
Yeah,
For example, not mental illness, but an example of, well, I could even use mental illness. So when I had my daughter, I dealt with postpartum depression. I was in serious depression. I was not dealing, I was mourning a prior pregnancy that ended in miscarriage. I had a husband at the time that was blaming me for the miscarriage. And my hormones were all over the place. And then I gave birth to my daughter, unsupportive husband, mourning the death of the baby I had been carrying, and then having a 4-year-old at the time already. And I was nursing my newborn daughter. I was depressed. I was very depressed. So it took a friend of mine to get me to she actually made the appointment, because I
yeah,
wasn't even making appointments for myself.
yeah.
And she actually drove me to the appointment
Yeah,
because I wasn't going.
yeah, same
Um,
here.
yeah, no motivation for
So
anything.
the
I
way
was
I
angry at
was,
my,
yeah,
huh?
we are basically not able to function
Yeah,
normally.
I was not. I was
When
angry at my newborn daughter.
it
I
strikes, you are just down,
Yeah, yeah,
down
yeah.
for the
There was,
count.
yeah, exactly. But taking the medication, I was prescribed a medication, and going to talk therapy, going to talk to someone about my feelings. If I had refused to go to talk to someone and only relied on the medication, I feel like for me, that that was almost like I was only trying to heal myself halfway.
Yeah.
only
I agree.
surviving, not trying to get better.
Yeah.
And for me, my feeling as witch is to always better myself. So, I mean, if I've fallen, I just want to better myself to get back up.
Yes.
But again, I'm not making any judgments on anybody
No,
else. I'm
because
just trying to share my own experience. So I feel like it goes hand in hand. So, I mean, if I'm taking a medication and I'm doing the shadow work, or I'm taking the medication and I am trying to improve myself in however that looks for the individual, I think that is part of our craft. That is part of,
yes, it is.
us being a witch.
Yes, absolutely. Because as a witchy type of personality, we say, or as pagan, practicing pagan, or whatever you might want to call that, this is part of a process. We are not supposedly a type of people who categorize things and putting it in some boxes that doesn't ever interact. No, we know that everything is connected, or at least we should know that everything is connected. So taking medication is one step
Mhm.
amongst the other you have to take to feel better. I've here a bunch of testimony of speeches, sorry, given by people who deal with a lot heavier difficulty in terms of mental illnesses, heavier than just depression. And for the most part, they do express that meditation, you know, was a really important step for them alongside their medication to improve and feel better on an everyday basis. And for a good bunch of those people, they were pagan too, and their practices help them
I agree.
alongside medication, because this is a whole thing. I don't think this would be a good choice to rely only on medication and not doing any shadow work slash psychotherapy, or just doing magical practices without addressing in the now your physical problems, without
Mhm.
taking any extra boost to help. I think
Well,
it's
I mean,
hand in hand.
I think if you are fortunate and maybe you don't need medication,
Oh, if you
if
that
you're someone who is, huh?
if it's that light, if I may say, yeah, don't
Yeah,
just run to take
right, right. That's what I was going to say. I mean, I
anxiety.
have dealt modern, since postpartum depression. I'm not on medication for depression anymore. I mean, that was sort of that situational, right?
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean I don't deal with bouts of, I don't even know. I would hate to call it depression, but bouts of darkness. I don't know, like really deep sorrow, deep uh, self doubt, dark night of the soul, however you want to uh, label it, low energy. I don't know, however you want to label that. I certainly deal with that, but I don't feel I need medication for that,
Mhm.
um, because I don't allow it to get to the point where I feel like I need medication. But I can't ignore it, because if you ignore it,
It's gonna get worse.
exactly. But I think, again, it kind of goes back to, again, the first pillar of the pyramid. To know means to know what your energy tide, your personal energy ebb and flow. how that works for you, so that when you're dealing with the low energy times, you're allowing yourself to work through it, to feel it, to experience it, to, go with it. And because at some point, if you understand your own energy and how it ebbs and flows, you know that it's going to, pull you back up and out. For me, when it's winter, whether it's here in rainy Seattle or whether it's super cold on the East Coast, winter is a really difficult time for me.
Yeah, me
It
too.
really is a difficult time.
Me too.
All I want to do is hibernate.
Yeah, me too.
So I allow myself that, because if I don't, and I try to make myself feel super energized, it's a battle and I just get more discouraged. So knowing yourself is a big thing.
This is the first step about pretty much everything, and especially in terms of witchcraft or magic. Knowing yourself is the first step. And it means accept that you are going through a tough time. Accept the fact that you are feeling low or blue or maybe worse, maybe really depressed, maybe, yeah, maybe you can sense that there is something wrong, if I may say, in the way your brain is working. Accept that, address that, doesn't deny it, address it. Because when we deny something like that, it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. Because I think your soul, mind, body wants you to solve this problem, wants
Mm-hmm.
you to address this problem. And if you don't, it's just gonna get worse, and it's gonna forces you to address it.
I
But if
agree.
you know, but if you wait too long, the battle gonna be harder than it might have been. Don't wait too long to to address this kind of things. I'm
I
not
agree.
you should run around the next psychiatrist to explain that you are a clairvoyant and you see people in the hospital corridor. Like maybe you should not take the thing exactly this way. Maybe not, because and this is kind of a problem here, because how those people who has to deal have because they are number, yeah, have, okay, we have to deal with, sorry, I'm trying to not speak too much shit because I'm really tired. It's been a tough week, as you can imagine. Okay, so I was saying, if you are amongst the people who have to deal with psychic abilities and some form of mental illness, how do you address the problem without putting yourself in a difficult situation in front of the medical, you know, down to earth system? How do you do that? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I I don't know. I don't know.
The few people that I've listened to on YouTube, that who were trying to address their issue while being pagan. Uh, I don't remember any one of them mentioning that they did mention that to their psychiatrist or anything. because I'm not sure it's gonna help. When you have DID trouble, which is a really mind-blowing issue, is in it's dissociative identity disorder. That's it. Yeah. When you do have this kind of trouble to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know? Because this is a question I do ask myself, and maybe someone in the chat gonna have maybe not a personal experience, but gonna know someone who goes through that. But if you do have the ID, how do you know that in fact you are connecting to your higher self, your past lives memories, or something like this? Because there is some amazing, mind-blowing things that happen with people who suffers with DID. For an example, there is a very famous case of it, of a woman medically blind. I mean, medically, scientifically proven, she's blind, but she was suffering of DID, and one of her personality was not blind. And when this personality was fronting, when this altar was fronting, she was able to see, read, write like a normal person. Tell me this is not
Wow.
magical. Tell me this is not.
So that must mean that there wasn't a medical problem. There wasn't a physical problem with how her eyes
Yes, it
functioned.
was. It was scientifically proven. There
That there
was,
was a problem with her actual physical
she was
eyes.
blind. Yeah, she
Well, I know
was.
she was blind, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, no, her eyes wasn't supposed to function at all. It was not physically possible.
so then how did, I mean, did they must have done tests to see
Yeah,
how they actually
yeah.
functioned when that personality was in control of the body?
No explanation offered because no explanation found it. No explanation.
Well,
She wasn't supposed to see. It wasn't possible, and she did.
I'd have to look at that.
Yeah. Do you see? And it appears to me that this specific mental trouble in it relies more than we are able to understand.
Mm.
This they got their inner world, and when you do listen to someone uh, who agrees to share a little bit about how their system function, to me it sounds pretty much like something really close to a greater consciousness.
Hmm.
uh, there is something in it. Maybe it is the most visible uh, mental trouble, the most visible connection between mental trouble and um, psychic abilities and everything else.
Well, you know
In
what I was just thinking that explaining the woman that one personality could see and another one was blind. I'm really curious if maybe perhaps she wasn't multiple personality, and instead we're talking about a case of walk-ins
yeah,
instead. That it
absolutely.
wasn't her, but
Was
another
her, yeah.
spirit was possessing the body with her. Um,
Or
because if
she
it, because multiple person. Well, I'm sorry, it's not multiple personality anymore. What is it?
DID,
Thank you.
dissociative
Right.
identity.
Right. Where it's just the one spirit, the one spirit that is through trauma fractured. So that's one scenario, that the person dealt with trauma and their personality, different parts of themselves to save themselves. And you can reconnect all those pieces through soul retrieval. You go and you work with someone and you can integrate all those personalities back into one. But I do think there are cases where it's not, where it's different, totally different souls inhabiting the one body. And I think sometimes that would be
happened. I
more
think
of a well, I know someone who that well, I don't know her anymore because she lives on the East Coast, and she was a sister, or is the sister of a friend of mine. And I met her, and yeah, it's a walk-in scenario there.
yeah.
It's really
And
interesting.
yeah, and there is, I think, also some people who just connect to the fragment of their soul that holds what they were before in previous life. You know,
I agree. Yeah.
there is pieces of higher consciousness there because some
Yeah.
of those personalities are extremely wise
hmm
and knowledgeable without any logical explanation for that. This is not just making up things and trying to sound like it goes further than that. So
Yeah.
to me there is a really real connection
Yeah. No, I agree.
in a specific condition with magic, paranormal, higher
Mm.
realm, and everything else, greater consciousness and psychic abilities.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
if we do think again with about the case of the woman, scientifically, medically proven blind, who can see suddenly, maybe she is also projecting in the astral realm.
Mm.
And she see. She doesn't need her physical eyes to see if
Right.
she
Right.
does astral projection,
Right.
masters it, then she can be in the same room than you and even doing projecting herself in the astral realm and in lifetime.
Right.
Maybe, but there has to be an explanation, but we are just not ready to accept it. We are even not ready to research it. And in terms of mental illness, I think we do lack a lot of perspectives because we do not include this kind of thinking in the way
Right.
we do approaches those troubles. And we've talked about schizophrenic type, but in some cases that might as well be real voices that anyone else cannot hear.
hmm
We've talked about that. There was a lot of medium and clairvoyant, clairaudient people who were institutionalized,
hmm
difficult to say, because they were hearing or seeing things, but they weren't schizophrenic at all. They were just psychics.
hmm
So I hope in the future we're gonna the scientific or so-called scientific world gonna open up a little bit because they are missing a huge part of research there. and maybe a good amount of help that could be provided to people who have to deal with those conditions.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a mind blowing subject.
I know, and I definitely think, um, well, I'm gonna just stress again that trying to um, determine for someone else, whether they're really mentally disturbed or psychic should be left to healthcare professionals. I would never try to determine for someone else. I have a hard enough time trying to determine for myself. Are you kidding?
Absolutely, we're not doctors, and
Yeah.
I'm someone who believes that everything should work hand in hand.
Yeah.
Science, medical science, especially in the to fit the topic, medical science and everything else.
Mm.
But it should be both. And as we are not trained to diagnose anyone, we should not try
Yeah.
to
No kidding.
diagnose anyone.
Mm-mm.
This would be wrong and probably won't do any better for the person who has issues. But that doesn't mean that we cannot advise those people to try meditation, to try crystal healings, to try, to gain a serenity kind of
Mhm.
peacefulness. Because this gonna help them to go through what they have to deal with.
Oh, I
And
agree. I think all those things are beneficial for anybody.
absolutely,
Getting a Reiki healing, getting a chakra balancing, aromatherapy treatment, or a nice crystal healing, or I think that's going to be helpful no matter what's going on.
yeah.
I wouldn't say just rely on that if you're
No,
dealing with some sort of medical situation, but I mean, it's definitely going to help you.
it's a step. It's a step. And even if you wanna try some witchcraft, or if you are already a practicing witch, do so. Do cast to help yourself, to improve your your condition. Do so because it's gonna have an impact.
Hmm.
But don't deny anything else. Don't just rely on that. I don't think it would be a good idea. In my perception, again, everything is connected, and science is just a part of what we are able to do.
Yeah, I
Relying
agree.
on science and medication is just an evolved form of herbalist things.
Hmm.
In the ancient time, they wasn't able to isolate particle and chemicals, so they relied just on the herbs and plants and everything. The medication part is the evolved thing from that. So why deny any medication? I'm not sure it could be. I'm not sure. I don't think it's a thing to do. But you don't have to just do that. Do everything you can, including psychotherapy or and shadow work. Do all those steps to help yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree.
Um, I'm trying to catch up also
I
in the
know there
chat.
is so much going on in chat, and we only have 5 minutes left.
Oh shit. Okay.
Um,
It's not 10.
so I think just kind of like a summarize. I think we've said that if you are, if I haven't said this, I am going to say this. If you're taking medications for mental illness or any reason, you can still do magic, and you could still practice witchcraft. But what I would say too is know that if you are dealing with something that is sort of distracting you, like or interrupting you, or creating resistance between where you are and where you want to be, it's going to be more difficult to get there. So for example, if you are depressed, or even if you're anxious, say you're dealing with anxiety and you want to do a magical working for, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with anxiety, but something else. Know that you're dealing with this anxiety, that it may take more of your efforts. It may take longer for you to be able to focus and visualize your end result. So it's not that, like Obsidian said, it's not that you can't do it. It just might take more from you to accomplish your magic.
Yes.
As opposed to someone in good health, focused, so just knowing what you're working with, knowing what you are capable of, to know what it is you want to do and where you are in getting that, is going to help you out in the long term.
Yes, of course.
I mean, ideally, we all want to be in perfect health, whatever that looks like: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health. And if you're in perfect health, then your magic is going to be easier to manifest because you're in perfect health. But that doesn't mean someone who isn't in their perfect health can't manifest,
Can't pretty much manifest things, even if you are really depressed.
Yes.
I know that for a fact. I've been through that. So I know you can. It's just tougher.
I know for me personally, when I'm in one of those low energy, dark places, I don't want to do magic. I don't. I have no motivation to do anything.
First,
so for me, I don't.
Me.
I mean, except those things like I've charged candles. They're already sitting, waiting for me. If I need to do magic during a low energy downtime, I know I can just do quick candle magic.
Candle
and
magic.
I tend to do things. I know it's always the easiest thing when I'm not.
And it's pretty effective.
Yeah.
Pretty effective. It doesn't have to be complicated to be efficient. The simplest thing can work pretty amazingly well. So, personally, when I'm feeling that low, that down, as you mentioned, I don't have any impulse to do anything because I'm too low for all that. So I'm focusing on shadow work and talking me out of this state, and rely on some, battery I might have stored for those times. But if you just about depression, there is hope to get out of this. And there is hope about pretty much anything, I think. There is hope. Don't give up. Work on yourself. Address the problem. Address the issue you got by any means possible. By any means possible. Address it. Work on it. You're gonna go through it. Don't give up. This is the hardest part. Don't give up. This can be really difficult to not give up, but don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So that is the end of our show tonight. Like I said, the next show will be not next week, but the week after, which will be February 27th. I mean, whether it's a pre-recorded show or whether I'm live by myself, we'll see. Not sure what we're doing yet, but that'll be the next date. So keep that in mind, tag it in your calendar so that you can be here. And if it is a pre-recorded show, I think I can do some kind of watch or with the audience or something like that. I think I can do something like that. So
if it's pre-recorded, yeah, you can just, yeah.
I could do like a premiere or something like that where I can be in chat while we watch it together or something. But anyway,
Before we go, if you allow me, before we go, people just here, I know someone asked to talk about that just in the very beginning. I just want to address you an advice about the situation here in Europe. You should take precaution. Be safe, people. This is highly contagious. Don't think you're gonna go through it without taking any precaution. Just be safe. Don't panic. It's gonna be all right. But be safe. Okay? Take care of you and your family. Don't do stupid things.
they're going to do stupid things anyways. Everybody does stupid things. But anyway, until next time that we meet, thank you for being a part of the show, everyone.
Yeah.
And I love you.
I didn't read them.
I know, I have to go back and read chat because so much is happening.
Yeah, so much.
Thank you all and see you next time. Love you.
Bye.
Mwah. Blessed be.
Yeah.